Hey everybody, Call of Duty has just announced a new game, or rather they've announced a new trailer for a new game. The trailer for Call of Duty Black Ops 4 is coming out tomorrow as I'm recording this. It's March 16th right now, March 17th the trailer comes out. So I'm really hyped and excited. It's been a while since I've been this hyped for a Call of Duty game. Last year I was sorta hyped for World War II, but to be honest, I was not impressed enough to pay the $60 to buy the game on launch. And now that it's been out for a while and I've been hearing more fan criticism, it's not something I've been interested in. Before that, it's been a long time. Probably like Black Ops 2 I was hyped for. Black Ops 3, I guess. So I think that everybody is excited about the first Call of Duty game that they played, or that style, right? So if the first game that you played was Modern Warfare 2, then you obviously like the style of Infinity Ward. Or if you played Black Ops 1 for the first time, and that was your first Call of Duty experience, then you probably have an affinity for Treyarch's style of game making, and just nobody likes Sledgehammer. So that's basically how it goes. So I wanted to do a commentary over Call of Duty gameplay, which feels to me like it's a cliche, but I guess it's been so long since it's been typical to do Call of Duty gameplay and commentary. Like, I guess that people still do it, right? But it just, to me, it feels like my own viewing habits have moved so far past it that it seems almost kitschy or like cringy to a degree, although I'm not sure if that's quite the right description. When I first started watching YouTube, the first channel that I watched really consistently was White Boy 7th Street, this Call of Duty commentator back in the day. Because if you don't remember, Call of Duty, like if you weren't in the gaming community in like this very particular time, like maybe 2009 through 2011, like Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops 1, that's kind of like the golden age when everything was, like when Call of Duty was a really big deal, right? Because I remember being in high school, and the first week that Call of Duty Black Ops 1 came out, I was a freshman in high school when Call of Duty Black Ops came out. And I remember that maybe like a third of all the guys in my freshman class were just gone the first day, because it came out on a Tuesday. Like, Call of Duty usually comes out on a Tuesday, so like a third of the people were gone. It was like a skip day or something. Like, nobody knew what was going on if they weren't like in the know that the game was coming out. So like half of all the guys knew what was up, and then like nobody else knew. Like, the teachers were like, what happened? Like, where is everybody? But I think people started to slowly catch on. And then the second day on that Wednesday, like, a lot more people showed up. Like, most people just skipped the first day if they're skipping at all. And then the Thursday, like, most people were back. And then by Friday, like, I think there were two guys in my freshman class who they just skipped the whole week. They were just at home playing Black Ops the whole time. And, you know, they probably hit, like, Burst Prestige or something, I don't know. But the point is that Call of Duty for those couple of years was, like, the big thing. It was like Pokemon or something. It was like this huge craze. So you could hop online like whenever you got home. Like, that was the thing. It's like, I used to play football during my freshman year, so I would wake up in the morning. Like, especially if it was one of the days when the DLC was coming out, I'd play Call of Duty before school. I'd go to school. I'd go to football practice after school, right after, for like the hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it was. Go home, eat dinner, and then play Call of Duty. Like, if I had homework, I'd like finish it somewhere in that time frame. But more or less, like, Call of Duty was like the thing to do with all your free time. That was like everyone was on there, so you could hop on whenever you wanted, and there would be somebody like from school or whatever, somebody you know, like online, and you could hop into a party. You could play a few matches. Once you got bored, you could switch over to zombies from multiplayer, because that's like a completely different game, right? And I mean, nobody played campaign, right? You probably played it once on like Recruit, and then you stopped, which makes sense, right? But the campaign was fine, but it's like you hop from multiplayer back to zombies and then back to multiplayer again, and you just keep repeating that process because it's like this never-ending loop. It's like, well, we're bored with this game, right, multiplayer, so we're gonna go play zombies, and it's like this its own self-contained experience, right? But even beyond the game, it was this whole integrated cultural phenomenon for this very specific group of people who were like in high school or middle school or, you know, a little beyond that during that time. Like, you could go on YouTube and the homepage was filled with Call of Duty stuff, and maybe it was because it was tailored to me and I just watched a lot of Call of Duty stuff, but that was really, like, before Let's Plays were a thing, before PewDiePie came on the scene and started playing all those indie games and horror games, like, Call of Duty was the thing, right? So everybody used to play Call of Duty games. If you go look at big YouTubers now, a lot of them, either some of them have made their videos private, but some of them have kept them out there. They started doing Call of Duty commentaries. Like PewDiePie said that he started on Call of Duty commentaries and then moved very quickly over to like whatever else he was playing, Slender or whatever was popular at that time, Amnesia. But the point is that everybody was into this, right? It was this whole integrated experience, or like a lifestyle. I mean, when you go to high school for the first time, like, that first few weeks is, well, even really the first few months is like a big deal. And even when you go to college and, like, I guess, I don't know about middle school, but when you get into high school and you're there for the first time, like, you wanna, you know, you have to make friends like pretty quickly. You have to find the people you want to hang out with, because those social groups are gonna find their cohesion pretty quickly, and they're gonna, I mean, depending on what school you're at, they might get sort of cliquey, like very, very fast, right? So you have to know where you want to be, and you have to get there, because things get stratified pretty quickly, right? And Call of Duty was like a thing where you could talk to anybody and they would be into it, right? Like, you could talk to people who are more nerdy or whatever, and they'd be into Call of Duty because, like, hey, it's a video game, right? And you could talk to the people who were like, I could talk to other guys on the football team about Call of Duty, and they'd be like, you know, they'd be all behind that. Like, you can't just talk about Call of Duty, I guess. I mean, at that time you really could, but, you know, like, it was like this whole thing, right? And it facilitated social interaction in a way that I don't think a lot of other games have. Because now, people don't play just one game anymore, right? They play, you know, you'll hop on Civilization and then somebody will tell you that they want to play Counter-Strike, and you go play some Counter-Strike, and then somebody will be like, oh, we gotta go play some PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. You'll go do that for a while. And it's not, like, you can play a whole evening of PUBG, but you can't, like, it's not quite the same, because PUBG is like one game, right? And you can't switch over to zombies mode and have this huge, robust other game within a game that you can all play together. Maybe part of that is just the fragmenting of interests after high school, where people start getting into different things because you're not forced to, like, sit in a room with, you know, a couple hundred other people for like 8 hours a day. But I do miss that sense of cultural homogeneity, where everybody was all on the same page, everybody was doing the same thing, right? It's like, I don't really watch sports, but I can see how people who watch, you know, football every week, like the NFL, here in the US. I don't know if I have any viewers from overseas, but, you know, if this is like a year from now and I have like 1 million subscribers, which I very much doubt is going to happen, but, you know, at least within a year, but hey, you know, whatever, hi. Cool. Anyway, but it's like, if everybody watches football in your friend group or whatever, you can go to work and stand around the water cooler and talk to guys about how your team was doing this week, right? In whatever sports, it doesn't have to be football, but that's sort of like one of the most ubiquitous ones in the United States, right? Maybe baseball is pretty close too, but it was like this cultural glue that held everybody together, right? It was this shared interest among everybody. And I feel like increasingly with the internet, that's not really there anymore. And as a result, I feel like the social cohesion isn't really there anymore. Like, people have all these vastly divergent interests, right? People are into really different, disparate things. I mean, we have Marvel movies that are getting popular now, and DC to a degree, but it's like comic book movies are getting popular. It's like a huge mainstream thing, right? But I feel like the people who are driving the sales of tickets to like Marvel movies are like the people who read comics growing up, which is not everyone by any stretch of the imagination, right? And in some respects, I think that's good because it's fostering like the democratization of information sharing and so forth, right? It's almost like a return to sort of like the agrarian society and the pre-industrial like metaphysical constructs that we needed to be okay as people, basically. The idea of like anti-consumerism in a more distributivistic sense, like making things that you use for yourself and those things don't wear out as quickly and then you can fix them yourself, right? It's like self-reliance to a degree, but I'm a big proponent in some sense of distributism. I don't know how well it works in the modern world, but I think this could be one way that it would work, and I'll probably talk more about distributism in other videos. I don't want to get too far afield in this topic. I mean, I am talking about Call of Duty, but I'm interested in this idea that that the means of production should be like spread as widely as possible across like individual family units, right? So if somebody's gonna sit there and play Call of Duty, like, yeah, that's like something that everyone is into. That's like more of like a sort of corporate, like a big, far-reaching thing, right? But if you're gonna use that to make Call of Duty gameplay online and then use it to talk about whatever you want to talk about, like I guess I'm doing now, but like, tons of people have done in the past, and that in some respects spawned the entire, video game commentary subgenre on YouTube, then those videos are something that you're creating yourself, and you're putting your original content in them. You're transforming the original product, which is the Call of Duty game or whatever, into something new that you've created for yourself. And I just think that's something that's missing from contemporary society. Like, if you go and you work in an office all day, you're not necessarily creating something that you can say is yours. It's like you're creating something that the company owns, more or less, right? And I'm not saying that's strictly, like, always a bad thing. I just think that it's probably a better thing if you create something and then you have that thing. Like, where you can see the work that you put into it, and then you can see the outcome and the payoff, and you're sort of caught up in that cycle of responsibility yourself. Which brings me back to Call of Duty as a game franchise specifically. I think that Call of Duty isn't necessarily a great game just because of the game itself. I think that, like a lot of other games, whether you want to talk about Dark Souls or really anything else that has, especially an online component, but not necessarily, right? Like Pokemon, which I mentioned earlier, was like this huge phenomenon worldwide, right? Because it was something that you could use to interact with other people. It's not that the game was just great on its own. You could, buy a link cable for your Game Boy and you could link it with somebody else's Game Boy and trade your Pokemon or have battles, right? So it was a way to facilitate not just social interaction among, kids, which is a good thing that you should try to mitigate the effects to which you should try to mitigate the effects of video games that are making you less socially adept. Like, if video games are something that you enjoy in your room alone, playing online without chatting with anyone else or anything, I think that can definitely be unhealthy, right? Like, people talk about violence in video games, and, that's... I mean, I'm not gonna get into that right now, but, like, it's obviously, like, there's some problems there with just, people disagreeing, right? But one thing that I don't think that people talk about a lot is this problem of, if you're gonna sit in your room and play video games all the time, you're gonna become socially inept. You're gonna become like a loser, right? And you're not gonna have those social skills developed. You're not gonna be properly socialized in like a formal psychological sense, right? But I think that games like Call of Duty, or, I mean, even to a degree Dark Souls, even though there's not as much communication there, or like Pokemon, have so much potential not just to mitigate those effects, but to completely do away with them. Because if you're gaming in a context where you're forced to interact with other people, then that ceases to have that effect, right? You're talking to people. It's not face-to-face, but you're still interacting. There's still that give and take. You have to navigate a social relationship. And in some ways, I think the cultural ubiquity of a game like Call of Duty, or even like sports, which like I said, I'm not like a huge fan of sports, and I think that they have their drawbacks, their pros and cons. But I think that one of the huge upsides of sports, or anything that's culturally ubiquitous like that, is that it can foster a sense of community in the viewers, or if it's a game, in the players, right? Because when I was recording this gameplay for Call of Duty for this video that I'm talking over right now, and really every time that I play Call of Duty offline, I'm not really getting the same effect. When I play zombies, I do to a degree, because that's still something where you can get to a round and that has just, you know, a 1 or 2 digit number usually. You can share that with other people and say, hey, look at, you know, I got to round 50 or whatever. Not to brag, hey, I've been to round 50 like 1 time, so I'm pretty good at zombies, haha, wow. But anyway, like, you can share that with somebody else, right? Even though you're not sharing the immediate experience. And I feel like that's sort of like a secondary, like that's 1 tier lower, but if you can play Call of Duty online, that's a completely different experience. And it's sad that when I've played more recent Call of Duty games, because the last one that I bought was Black Ops 3, because I like Black Ops games. That was, you know, the style that I started out with Black Ops 1, so that's what I was all about, right? So I figured I'd pick it up. But people don't chat online as much as they used to, and I think that's really sad, you know? Either everybody's in, like, parties, which I think is an upside, but I don't think that... I think we can't diminish the importance of being able to chat with other people and foster that sense of community online, because I think that's one of the major factors that make video games, that turn video games from an unhealthy obsession to more of a healthy pursuit that you can do for a living, even, right? Like, people make videos of video games online and they do commentary and so forth, and that's something that you create yourself. Like I said, that's great. But I think that's almost impossible without fostering that sense of community, because if there's no sense of community there, if people aren't communicating online when they're playing these games, then not only are their social skills suffering, but also the game doesn't have a following online, right? And so nobody's gonna buy your product, essentially, in some sense. Nobody's gonna watch your YouTube video, right? Like, there's still a community that watches Call of Duty videos, but there's no community that watches, like, Murder Dog 4. Which, I mean, if you haven't heard of that game, that's the point, right? It is a game. It is a real game. I did not just make that up. I love that game, actually. It's great. Maybe I'll do a gameplay of it sometime. But the point is, you have to foster that sense of community. Because without that, Call of Duty is really just sort of a hollow shell. It's like a tool that's not being put to any use, right? Like the final... I don't want to say the final cause in an Aristotelian sense, but I mean, to a degree that's true. Like, the purpose of a game like Call of Duty or Pokemon is not to make a great game in and of itself. It's to make a great game in the context of this community, right? It's to build up that sense of community with other people so that you can gain all these benefits, right? And I think that's one of the higher goods that games have aspired to. I don't think it's necessarily the highest good, because I think that you could make a really great work of art in the form of a video game, and I could talk about that in a future video, but for the sake of this video, suffice it to say that I think that it's good that you can chat with people online when you're playing a video game, right? Services like Discord are good. I don't know how many people use Skype anymore, but, you know, that's the point, right? You can Twitch stream, you can do all these things, so I guess if I'm going to leave you with one call to action, make YouTube videos, stream on Twitch, like, communicate with other people online about the things in which you're interested in terms of video games, right? That's basically it. So if you like this video... Oh man, I guess I'm gonna sound like an old school Call of Duty commentator. Like, comment, and subscribe, you guys. Rate 5 stars. Favorite the video. Whoa. But I'm not. I don't know. Do whatever you want. You know, if you wanna comment, like, and subscribe, you can. I'm not gonna force you, because I know some people don't like to hear that. So anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you got something good out of this video. See you next time.